Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. Uh, Welcome to another session of We Care series. Today, we're going to talk about how to start a small business in Finland. I think most of our audience are familiar about IWF and We Care, but a little short introduction once again from my side. So IWF is a community which was started in 2015 to help Indian women to integrate here in Finnish society. And We Care series is something that was started during this COVID times, where we could bring to you such important topics, where you would get useful information on things like how to start a business. And then we did earlier topics on mental wellness, investment, and a lot of other useful topics there. So today, like I said, we're going to start talking about how to start a small business in Finland. And our main guest today is Pia Partanen from Newco Helsinki. Hi, Pia. Very happy to have you on board. A very short introduction about Pia. Pia is a business advisor in Newco, and her main area is to support female immigrant entrepreneurs. So once again, thank you, Pia, for joining us today. Very happy to have you on board.
Extremely happy to be here.
And a little bit of a overall agenda that we are having today. We would have Pia to talk about, give us more details on this, how to start a business here. And then we would have a panel discussion where we have other guest speakers as well online. And after that, we would be taking questions from you. So please make sure to, add your questions here right under the live so that we would be answering them right after the session. So without much to do, over to you, Pia.
Thank you. There. Can you see my screen? Perfect. Yes, without further ado, let's go over to how to start a small business in Finland. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our services here at Newco Helsinki, because everything that we do is free for you to access. It's free of charge and it's always confidential. So if you want to ask about starting a business in more detail concerning specifically your business idea, you're more than welcome to come and meet us. Then we talk a little bit about where to find business ideas, then about selecting the way to go when you're starting a business in Finland. Why would I need a business plan? Is it for something else than just getting financing for the company? And then we move over to the financing, both for yourself and for your company. We touch a little bit about different forms of companies. I've heard that some of you are interested in light entrepreneurship and part-time entrepreneurship. So we will cover those. And then if we have time, we move on to other topics like taxes and insurances and such. We at Newco Helsinki are fully owned by Helsinki City. So everything that we do is free of charge. We serve around 4,000 customers annually, and around 42% of them are non-Finnish speakers. So we have a lot of foreign immigrants visiting our services. And the number I'm particularly fond of is the 80% of the companies that are started with our help are still functioning after 5 years, because normally the number tends to be around 50%. So maybe it shows that we like our jobs. We offer a lot of company information events and workshops that you're free to attend to. There's quite a lot of selection in English as well. And you can find them on our website, newcohelsinki.fi, under events. And there's guides and videos and other materials on our website as well. We offer one-to-one business coaching, so you can either come and fine-tune your business plan and calculations, or just generally talk about your business idea or specific problems relating to your business. We have courses that are speeding up now after the COVID pandemic a little bit, and we also have a wide expert network. So if there's questions that we know that somebody else can answer better, we can guide them. We can guide you to their services. And the first visit is always free of charge. We have legal services, accounting, and advertising to give you a few examples. If you haven't already uploaded the guide for becoming an entrepreneur from our website, do it. It's very inspirational, but it also answers a lot of questions concerning how you become an entrepreneur in Finland. It's not really a leaflet. I think it's quite thick, but it's something that you can you can return to every now and then when you want to know an answer to a specific question. And then to the actual business. Normally people think that starting a business is something that you create from the scratch. It doesn't have to be that way. Of course, most often it either is a completely new business idea or a market opportunity that you spot. The completely new idea can come out of your hobbies or your interest or your previous occupation, or the fact that you notice that something's missing, for example, from the Finnish market that you could take from the Indian market, or you could use your language knowledge, which in Finland, which could make you could make it into a business. Or then you can see a market opportunity. That means that you have already some businesses in that market, but you know that you can do something better. I think a good example of this is Volt. There was already quite many companies that provided food from the restaurants to your home, but Volt just did it better. They had a better technology, and the team was something that got the investors excited, and the rest is history, like they say. You can also buy a company or the operations of the company or part of the company. It's very convenient if you're starting a cafeteria or a restaurant, for example, because then you don't have to buy everything anew, and you could be almost certain that most of the requirements for the location are already fulfilled. If you decide to buy a company, I strongly recommend you to use a professional in closing the deal, and also make sure that you know the numbers of the company for at least 3 years before the actual acquisition. Then there's franchising, in which the company that's the franchisee gives you or releases you for a certain profit, the branding, the advertising, and the strategy of the company. There's a lot of cafeterias and restaurants again that are using franchising spaces for their operations, as well as, for example, Ärkioski. Or then you can, just a minute, then you can continue something that, for example, your employer has started. If he or she is going to retire, it's easy to pick up from where he or she left. Or you can become a team member in a company. You don't have to start a company all by yourself if you don't want to. What you should know and do when you set up a business. One of the most important things is testing your business idea. First of all, your business idea must be, or might be, or should be actually the most important thing that your company owns. But even though you think that this idea is brilliant, it might be that it doesn't really fulfill the needs of your customers. So always at least test and discuss with your customers. Don't just ask them questions and they can answer yes or no to, because then you don't get much out of the conversation. Try to make them describe what was the situation they need an answer to, which you will then provide with your product or service. How did they solve a problem before, and what are they expecting from your solution, as well as what their preferred price range is. In that way, you don't just get to fine-tune your business idea, but you also get a lot of material for how to arrange the service, how to fine-tune the products, and how you do your marketing. Then you should do the business plan, and depending a little bit on what your aim is, there might be different tones that you want to take in the business plan. But oftentimes it's thought that business plan is something that you only need for applying financing. Actually, this should be first and foremost for you. We'll get a little bit more into detail on that in a short while. And then an important point, you as an entrepreneur are responsible for any licenses and permits that you might need in the line of business that you're working in. I'm going to give you a list of places, websites where you can check if licenses apply to your line of business. Also, if you have a business location, you should have some kind of clue of the price range and the location before you try to arrange for financing. After arranging financing, you should choose the legal form of the company. Normally that tends to come a little bit beforehand as well. That's not one of the, it always comes quite naturally. Then you make the startup notification. There's two options for that as well. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later. You assess the risks that might be involved in your line of business, and if you need insurances to cover the risks, you take them, and of course the pension insurance, which is obligatory for almost all of the entrepreneurs. If you're doing just a very little spare time entrepreneurship, earning less than 8,300 a year, then the pension insurance isn't for you. Then you should consider whether you take an accountant or set up a bank account. If you are a sole trader or if you work as light entrepreneurship, that's not necessary. Light entrepreneurship companies actually offer you accounting, so that kind of covers it. If you're a sole trader, I would recommend you to come up with some kind of an accountant, because especially during the first year, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and a good accountant actually earns her or his wages for you, is, for example, giving you advice on taxation. Yes, the infamous or famous business plan. There should be, if you're searching for financing, these are the things that the reader at least expects to find in a business plan. If there's something vital to your line of business that is missing from this list, feel free to add it, but be sure that they know your business idea and you have described it in a way that is clear and gives the idea of why the customers would like to buy from you instead of your competitors. You should explain your own competence. Why are you capable of entering this line of business, and are you capable of running a business? SWOT analysis, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Explain the products and services, including the price breakdown. So if you, for example, sell food and you buy something to make the food, you need to describe that as well in the description of product pricing. If you need production facilities or there's logistics involved, explain them. And then you should get the reader know your customers. Who are your customers? A short description of the market, how big it is, where is your niche in the market, are there trends that are beneficial for you? And then you should write a marketing or sales plan. The plan is with big letters, because quite often I see just I'm doing social media as a marketing plan. The clearer the plan is for you, the clearer you make it with stepping stones and budget and timelines and responsibilities. If there's more than just one person, the easier it is for you to follow then when the actual business starts and you have quite a lot of other things on your mind as well. When you do the competitor analysis, make that so that you can learn from it. When you know your competitors, you know how you stand out from them and you know how to market. And then if you have permits or licenses, list them out. As for the calculations, this part is oftentimes considered as something difficult. If you haven't done calculations before, it sure can be that, but once you get the hang of it, it's really eye-opening. And it doesn't have to be, if the ends don't meet, there's always things you can do, and that this is exactly the way to make you think what you can do about it. So what is at least expected is an investment calculation to show how much is needed in order for you to get the business up and running. A profitability calculation that shows how much it takes to keep it up and running on a monthly basis, and a sales projection which tells how it's done. We have a very clear business plan template on our website, and we also have on a regular basis both business plan educations or workshops rather, as well as how to start a business in Finland educations, so events. So please feel free to take part in those. Now for the financing. I think the most often used way of finances is equity capital. That is something that you yourself or someone near and dear one would invest into your company. It can be a loan from the near and dear one, or then just your own investments for the company. If that's not enough, then there's bank loans, which can be guaranteed by Finnvera up to 80%. You need to have 20% of the guaranteed by yourself. As for the loans and guarantees that Finnvera offers, that's mostly for companies that are aiming to go abroad, so for international companies. The same pretty much, but not quite, applies also for Business Finland and Ely-keskus. Ely-keskus actually has some forms of financing and grants that are applicable also for companies that aren't aiming to be international. So their website is always, it's good to check that. I'm Googling at the same time, because there's one thing that might especially be something for you, which is Finn Partnership. It's the Foreign Ministry of Finland has a program called Finn Partnership, which is a grant for projects in developing countries. So if you're doing business that has to do with producing something in India, please check Finn Partnership. Investors and business angels and crowdfunding. Business angels oftentimes only fund companies that are, first of all, tech startups and aiming for international growth. If you can find a business angel that has special interests in the line of business that you're willing to pursue, then there might be a chance to actually get investments to something else as well. Crowdfunding might be an option. You can Google mesenaatti.me. That's the biggest one in Finland. If you're, for example, starting to import something, you could search for crowdfunding. That's a way of funding where normal people fund your project or product development in order to get something then from you in return. Whatever you do, try to steer clear from quick loans. They are a lot easier to get than bank loans, but the interest rate is sky high compared with bank loans. So if the bank refuses you at first, ask them why. And remember, there's more than one bank in Finland, so try and opt for a loan from different banks as well. Now to the entrepreneurship forms. light entrepreneurship is quite, it's actually not entrepreneurship as such. It's a marketing name for certain kinds of services. It's a very easy way to test entrepreneurship. It's an easy way to do part-time entrepreneurship. And the so-called traditional light entrepreneurship is best for selling services and know-how, and I will explain to you why. The traditional way of doing light entrepreneurship is without a business ID number. So then the companies providing the services is actually just a billing service. You invoice through them and they pay you a salary. But when you would have to buy something to produce the things you're selling, or for example, food, if you sell food, or material for clothes or material for handicrafts, then the option A isn't for you. Ukko Pro and OP Kevyt Yrittäjyys also have the option B. That actually means that you become a sole trader. You will have a business ID and legally you are a traditional entrepreneur. You get from the company that provides a service, an accounting service and a billing program, and it is an easier way to start the business than perhaps setting up your own company. Having said that, that isn't too difficult either. If you have if you can register online, it's only 60 euros. It's very easy to establish. You can, if you don't work for the whole year, you can actually close the operations down for the time being. You're not operating with it. It's always a one-man business. So if you're more than one sole trader, isn't for you, but you can hire people. When the company business becomes more risky, or you have to invest more, then perhaps sole trader isn't the right form for you, because you are personally responsible for the enterprise's debts and other commitments. The tax is paid as if you were an employee, so it's paid on the result. So how to register? There's two options. You can either register at PRH, the Patent and Register authorities, which not only gives you the business ID number, but also protects the name. If you don't want to, if the protection of the name isn't really that important to you, you can also register just to tax authorities. Here are the exceptions to when you have to register to Patent and Register authorities. It's when you operate in permanent premises. For example, if you have a brick and mortar store that you're selling from, then you have to have a PRH registration, or if you employ people, or you operate in a licensed trade, and you can find the licensed trades from the PRH website. So when you want to register the company, check the name that is available. And even when you register it, if it looks like it's available, please write down an alternative name, because they have this about two week shadow, so to say, where they're processing the application, and it can be that somebody else has just registered the same name. It has happened to me, so I'm talking from experience. And then you have to define the line of business you're in. In the trade register, you can use your own words. When it comes to tax authorities, there's a list that you have to choose from, and quite often you don't have the exact match, so you just have to make do with the best alternative that they have. When you register with the trade register, I recommend you to add whatever it is that you're selling. For example, if you're selling clothes, you can say important making and selling clothes, and then you add all legal forms of business. That means that if you want to then sell beverages, you can do that. And it's really easy to do online. You have to be at least 18 years old and have a Finnish business identity code and the internet banking codes, and then it goes without problems. They even have service in English. When you check register, you have to think of the well, first of all, which is your first fiscal year? If you would set up a business now, it would be from now until the end of the year. And then the next fiscal year would be the full calendar year. And they ask you for the revenue prognosis for the taxes. And of course, at this stage, when you register the business, it can be anything. But don't be afraid, because you can change that at any time during the year. So if it seems that you estimated for too much or too little, then just change it. Limited liability company can be put up by one person. If you do that, remember that you can do all and everything by yourself, except that you have to have one deputy board member who is somebody else than you. When your business becomes more risky, or you have more money invested in it, then it's advisable, because personal liability is limited just to the amount you have invested in the company. So if you take a loan for the company, it is the company's loan, and you're not liable for that. If you're more than one, a shareholders agreement is strongly recommended, because then you have the chance to agree upon things that could cause irritation later on before that happens. And then just quickly, we have value-added tax, which is applicable for almost all the businesses that we have. Feel free to ask more. I think I'm over time already. And then there's the corporate income tax, which I referred to already when going through how to set up a business. There are some lines of business that are quite heavily loaded with different kinds of licenses and permits: health and social sector, restaurant and food services, alcohol and tobacco, insurances, financial services, telecommunications and imports. The suomi.fi link is a very comprehensive list of different kinds of lines of businesses where permits and obligations are needed. So check at least that one. And if there's anything that you need to ask and it's unclear, then feel free to contact us. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Pia.
Thank you.
It was a wonderful presentation. We had lots of information for the aspiring entrepreneurs in there. And it covered lots of important aspects also, like the finances, licenses, business plan, light entrepreneurship, and many other aspects of the entrepreneurship. So, we have asked the audience to keep sharing the questions, and we would be taking them towards the end. But for now, we move to our next topic on the agenda, which is the panel discussion. And we have 3 guests joining us for this. And I have the honor of introducing them and to welcome them on behalf of the IWF and its community. It's a pleasure to have them join us for this webinar and an opportunity for us to learn about their experiences and perspectives. So first we have Pukhraj Ranjan. She is an Indian educator turned entrepreneur. She is the founder of the sustainable clothing brand Moi Namaste. Through Moi Namaste, she has worked closely with a lot of self-help groups, craft communities, and the NGOs across India. Her brand has created livelihood opportunities for artisans and planet-positive lifestyle products. She has also recently opened a store in Helsinki, which we will learn more about in some time. But for now, a warm welcome, Pukhraj. Okay. Next, we have Rashmi. Rashmi is an entrepreneur in food business and owns Desi Zyka. She has an amazing journey from a PhD in cell and molecular biology to doing research in the field of cancer at Harvard and Helsinki University, and to now living her food dream. She started her journey by participating in many of the restaurant day events held in Helsinki, and now owns Desi Zyka, through which she offers food with delicious flavors of India and which can be purchased through various recos. So warm welcome, Rashmi.
You.
Next, we have Sukhi Raghunath. She is a crafter and an entrepreneur. She lives her passion for paper floristry through her business called My Sunshine Space. She prepares bridal bouquets, flower arrangements, as well as displays on order basis. As part of this, she also conducts workshops and in near future even plans to sell her own tutorials online. She is interested in sustainability and aligning her both interests. She's also exploring earth-friendly materials and serves on the board of an organization called Flow Rescue. Warm welcome, Sukhi.
Thank you, Sunana.
So we plan to open the floor for questions from audience, but before that, we have some questions from our side for each one of you. And Rashmi, I will start with you because we are aware that you may need to leave 20 minutes past 7. So my first question to you would be about so we have first of all we have many participants who are aspiring entrepreneurs in the food business, and so we wish to learn about your experience in setting up the Desi Zaika. Could you tell us a bit more about Desi Zaika and about your journey in establishing it? Primarily, like how did you start and how long it took you to establish it the way you see it at the moment?
Thank you, Sunaina. Yes, so what I already mentioned in my introduction was my background in science and research, and food has always been like a passion for me, a stress buster, as I said, and I decided to move into food because of my unemployment status, because it has not been, it became a little bit challenging to find a job. And so what I did with the food was what exactly Pia mentioned, like how I went on to start the company. And I had the same questions, like which company should I take and which direction do I go? So what I would like to add here was that I applied for this startup grant, which is for people who are unemployed and who would like to start a own company. So that was through the unemployment office. Anybody is eligible for it. And what Pia mentioned about the whole business plan and writing your own ideas there was something that you need to do through that program. So Desi Zaika was something, as I said, is my food dream, and I'm quite passionate about it. And I applied for the startup grant and set up, because the idea is that you have to first have you have to coordinate it with the unemployment office, and then you have to apply for the grant, and then you can set up the company. So I had the choice to make. What Pia mentioned was this Toy Minimi and this limited liability company, and I went on to set up the limited liability company, which for me was a little bit better because it's a little less risky compared to the Toy Minimi, because as Pia mentioned that you are basically on neck for it, like it's your own risks involved. So I have my background was already with the restaurant days and so on, where I really found that our food, Indian food, is something people are really, in a way, interested into it. So I already knew that this is what it's going to, that it has a potential. So when you write the startup grant, you have to provide what is your idea. So I described what I have been doing in this restaurant days and so on. So this after that, I had this company set up, and I've been doing for a couple of years now already the food through records. And also I tried actually last year through some of the stores, but of course the Corona time was not the best time to introduce products because people were already skeptical to go to the stores.
Thank you very much, Rashmi. But here I would like to ask you another thing. first you started as a home cook, isn't it? So you did a lot of
Exactly.
catering for parties and things like that. So could you tell us a little more about how do you go about registering your kitchen, and what are the checklists for home cooks basically for them to start their business?
Yes. So the thing is that if you want to sell food, even though through because for me, I don't have a separate space. I do it still through my own kitchen. So that has to be registered with the city. So there is an organization, this Evera. You have to contact them and then they will guide you. So you contact them and then you have a kitchen inspection where they guide you what you need to do about the food hygiene. You need to apply for this hygiene pass. And you have to go to Evera's website, and from there you will have like a coordinator who will coordinate things with you. You will have food inspection. They will guide you what you need to do. For example, the home cooks, if you are selling food through your home kitchen, you are not eligible to sell non-vegetarian food. You cannot do it. It's against the rules, because in order to do that, you have to have a separate workspace, separate fridge, separate counter space, separate everything. So that's why I don't do it, because I don't have the permits to do it. So that's something which is very important. Then they will guide you also, for example, if you want to sell food to a store. So if I'm doing it through Reco, I have a customer who's buying it from me. But if you sell to a store, it might be sitting there for a couple of days, for example. So those things, what to do, you need to do microbiological tests of your products. So those things are something that you will get all the information through Evera Coordinate.
Okay, that's good to know. At least it is good to know that non-veg is not allowed to,
Yeah,
I think.
it's by rule not allowed. Yeah.
Okay, thanks
So
a
we're
lot,
planning to
Rashmi.
start a
Yes.
brand.
Yes.
I think we've heard in your story the practical, how the information which Pia shared has been used to start up a business.
Well, yes. And I mean, when I was listening to Pia's presentation, it was rewinding in my own mind, because I have been through these steps myself. And one thing I would like to add here, because my company is this limited liability company, Pia mentioned about the taxation and accountant. I would highly recommend, because when you are starting a company, you have already enough on your plate. You have to figure out your product, you have to figure out your market, you have to figure out your costs, and doing all the taxation and everything on your own basically takes the time away that you could focus to grow your company. So I think it's very important to do those things, that you have like an accountant, and so you are like free of all those stressful numbers and finances and
Yeah, definitely. Thanks a lot, Rashmi. I think it's a great learning.
yes.
And now my next question is to Sukhi. So it is amazing how you continue to work with your passion for crafts, and how you have turned this into a business, My Sunshine Space. It's very inspiring for many of us who wish to do the same thing. So based on your experience and for the benefit of all, like, could you tell us a bit about the things one should consider before venturing into a business as yours? And what challenges one should be mindful of while running or setting up this business?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, thank you, IWF, for having me here. I think it's great that there's a platform to come openly and share this. Yeah, I'd like to start by saying I have also followed the process that Pia had shared, word to word. I think that order followed. I chose the Toi Minimi route because it suited my situation and my my plan better than any other form of business. And to get to this stage as well, I'd like to add that I took my own time. There was a lot of doubts and questions, and I'm sure everybody has it. And I'd like to urge people to come forward and to address it. I think the We Care is a great platform here, and if not this, there are other platforms. Please reach out and ask these questions. So when I started creating paper flowers, it started off as a hobby, but as I explored more, as I learned more, when people around me started seeing it and encouraging me, I thought there could be an opportunity in this. And I used my extra time to actually grow in this. I applied for an international sponsorship spot that two very established paper florists were conducting. I won that, and that helped me learn what creating a business in paper floristry would include. And then I spent time understanding the market here in Finland. I spoke to some of the craft stores. I would just walk in, speak to them. I also have a background in marketing communications and PR. So I used that to reach out to some of the craft magazines to check their interest. And I sort of built my connections with that. And when I was sufficiently satisfied with my answers, when I had people hand-holding me through the process, I started working on the business plan. And side by side, I ensured I got my Starti Raha as well. And NUCO was the organization that I approached, and their guides were very helpful. So I followed through. And once I had the Starti Raha, Toiminimi registration followed. And specifically for craft, I think while you're registering, it's important to check your classifications, because like Pia said, it goes on to help you in figuring out how much VAT you will charge for your material sourcing. It all makes sense. So it's very important to pay attention to those classifications. And once that happened, I also signed up for a bookkeeping service, because the initial months are hard, whatever kind of business, right? And I really want to spend time growing it. I want to explore what else I could do, how else I could market my product, instead of sitting and crunching numbers that are way above my experience anyway. So yeah, in a nutshell, the initial months are hard, but there is a way to solve this. Take the help of an organization, read through the material that's there, validate your idea first, and then give it a shot. And I think, yeah, expect the first few months, where your costs are definitely going to be higher than what you make, but that's true for anything. And don't be disheartened by it initially. So your passion will drive you further.
Thank you so much, Suki, for being so open and sharing that to us, because sometimes it's good to know the hurdles that you're facing as well, which would give more confidence for our audience to make their dreams come true by going ahead and registering their business. If there's one takeaway from this whole process, what would you think that would be? I mean, how happy you feel about the whole process, and what's the one takeaway that you have had now?
I think it would be, to stay open and not limit yourself. Yes, it is a new country, it is a new situation, but people are open. So, start working on your idea at some point and go ahead and put it out there.
Yeah, you did mention that it takes good 6 months and not to worry about how lucrative it is, and then go ahead and make your ideas come true. That's something that everybody should consider. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, and Sunaina, over to you for our next guest.
Sure. So my next question is for Pukraj. So Moi Namaste works with many self-help groups and communities and NGOs in India. And then these products are being sold in Finland. So the business model must be involving many elements based on my understanding, such as the strong network in India and in Finland, and also the import regulations and the branding in the Finnish market. So could you please tell us a bit more about these aspects and any other aspects that you feel the aspiring entrepreneurs in this field should be aware of?
Yeah, no. Again, first of all, just thank you for having me here. It's been very inspiring to just hear other entrepreneur stories as well, because when you're in entrepreneurship, you always feel like you're the only one, and it's quite a lonely job. So just to hear the journey of the other ladies was very nice. um, my work does involve working with multiple partners. I work with around, or at least since the inception of Moi Namaste, I've worked around 15 groups, NGOs, craft clusters, as well as self-help women groups. And one of the biggest challenges is definitely coordinating and logistics, because I don't live in India, but everybody is there. So that is definitely something everyone who's interested in importing from India to Finland should think about, because the Finnish market expects highest quality products, and you have to, if you're bringing anything from any country, you want to be able to match the expectation of your customer, of your client. So I think I spend a lot of time just finding the right partners in India. When I started, I would go, I still kind of go. When Sukhi was saying it takes 6 months to kind of feel comfortable, I've been doing this for 2 years and I still am on my toes. So hopefully it will be better soon enough. But yeah, you have to go to India, you have to build relationships. For me and my brand, sustainability and ethics is extremely important. So we just don't go buy from Indian markets and come sell here. There's a deeper commitment to creating sustainable relationships with women and being part of their capacity building as well. So you have to find the right partners. That requires a lot of work. In India, to export anything to anywhere in the world, you need an import-export license, which again isn't available with everybody. So you have to kind of go through that checklist that can they even send you products, and do they have the right documentation. I have been lucky that I have found a lot of partners through artisan NGOs like Dastkar in Delhi, who then support artisans to kind of connect with buyers abroad. And India does export a lot, so you have to kind of do a little bit of research to find the right partners. And what we do, because I'm a single person company and it is a lot to manage, I just work with our logistical partners who does all the import export kind of paperwork, as well as paying the customs, all not so fun things. It's always nice to get an expert involved, and rather than trying to figure it out, because if you go to even the Finnish customs site to find the right code for the product you've brought in, it's a long journey. So might as well get help when you need it, because in entrepreneurship, time is your biggest asset, and you have to really reflect on how you want to use that time. So if there's an expert out there who you could work with, then that's been at least my model. I forgot what your last question was. So it was, but
branding in the Finnish market.
Oh yes, and then understanding the taste and aesthetic, right? Like, because of course Indian aesthetic is extremely colorful and bold, and we love our patterns. I am a big fan of that. And when I was starting Moi Namaste, everybody said it wouldn't work because people in Finland like to wear beige and white. And it was very discouraging in the beginning, because I felt like it's not going to work. But there's always a customer for something. Pia's wearing Moi Namaste earrings today, which are extremely colorful and big and long and, bold. And we've found people who love us. So I think that's another aspect, is you want to match, of course, what the audience wants, but also what you are passionate for. Because if you like color and you want to bring that to the table, then you bring it. Just you have to be okay with the fact that it might take a while before you find the people who resonate with it. So, that's kind of my suggestion with that. But of course, I would say don't be obnoxious and be like, I'm just going to do what I want. I don't care. Because if you run a business, you need to sell products, and that's the only way you can make money. So then you want to talk to your customers, people who have come do, like we did a lot of Christmas markets, a lot of fairs in the beginning, just to get feedback, did pop-ups, whoever came asked if they liked the product, was the color palette okay, would they change anything? And when Moi Namaste I started, it was a gift shop. It was mostly working with NGOs and just bringing their products that could be sold as Christmas gifts or just corporate gifts. But because of the feedback we acquired through our customers, it's slowly transitioned and now become a sustainable clothing brand. So, like I think that's extremely important, to also being deeply connected to the people you're serving, which for me is both my artisans in India, but also the women who support the brand in Finland. So you have to manage both those relationships.
You have such a wonderful journey, and it's so nice to hear about the story, first of all, and congratulations on your new store.
Thank you. Everyone's welcome to visit.
Yeah, definitely. You've kind of covered this already, but just to know as well, of course, with there's a lot of import-export happening, and where do we find specific information related to that? What are the rates for these import-exports, and what are the steps for these kind of licensing, and more information on it?
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's Finnish customs, there's Tuli, there's Vero. You could find information on those websites. Of course, it takes a while to really understand, and you need to really commit time in researching for the product ideas, because there are some products which don't have very high custom fees, whereas there are some which do. Even if you're bringing, say, jewelry, I've had some women from India reach out to me and say they would like to bring, jewelry from India, like metal jewelry, but there are very strict guidelines of what metals are allowed within Finland or largely within Europe. If it's gold plated versus full gold, there's a conversation that needs to be had in that. So I think it's important, of course, product wise, it differs, but you want to make sure that you're checking out kind of like the customs website as well as just the Vero tax website to understand what that looks like. It would be different for different products.
That's really useful information. Now that you've also set up a store, could you just tell us a little more on how the process has been, for setting up a place, marketing for that? Pia already mentioned, don't rely just on social media, but these days not many people using social media. So how did you get the marketing going there, and what are the steps to remember to start a store, basically?
It's definitely a big commitment. I would say only get a store when you can make the rent easily, right? Because Helsinki isn't a cheap place. You don't want to just get a store because it is a good idea or like it would look cool, because if you can't pay the rent, your company is gonna shut down in a mere few months. So we opened the showroom now in April, after 2 years of being just online and like hustling from my extra room in my house and having all the stock. And I mean, I joke about this, but for a long time my house looked like a warehouse. So it was a decision that we took our time and we were okay with it. You could do it different ways. I got very lucky. I had a friend who was in that particular space where we are now, and she was moving out and she said, hey, is someone interested in taking over? And I was like, yeah, easy. It is not that easy because, finding the right space and the right size and the right budget takes time. There are Facebook groups like Mushrooming Helsinki, where if you don't have a lot of stock, like I needed more space because I have products, you could, check those spaces out. They always, the people in that group are always posting about opportunities to have a co-working space or share a studio space so the rent isn't too high. And then of course, once you've set it up, for me, you had to I also wanted to make sure that my store doesn't look like a bazaar or, like just a messy corner. Wanted to give it a more elite, more showroom kind of setup, because I do believe that the products I have are made with a lot of love, with a lot of, effort, and it deserves to be celebrated and not just something cheap from India. So I have a certain commitment to making sure Made in India is celebrated and not looked down upon. So you want to kind of keep those aspects in mind as well. And when you do that, then you have to think about location, you have to think about how you will arrange the store, all of that. It took me 1 month and at least like 5 friends to kind of get it to the place where it is now. So, and I'm sure it will change, in a few months again, some new things will get added. But my only tip with space is it's super nice to have your own space, but don't commit to it unless you're really sure or if you really need it. Because as a business owner, you don't want too many, I don't know, fixed costs. Like, every month you need to pay a certain amount if you don't need to. Of course, if you are a business that needs storage room or needs space to make things a studio space, that's another thing. But be very mindful of how you use your funding. And my funding was the money we got for our honeymoon, so I still haven't got honeymoon, but I wanted to make sure that I'm not just wasting it, I'm making good use of it. So that's my suggestion.
Now I can't really wait to come and actually see your store in Helsinki.
Please. Welcome.
Ramin,
Okay, thanks. Sorry.
I was just saying that I want to just add one thing to what just was mentioned about the store. So if you have like a food kitchen in your mind, just be realistic that it's not very easy to have like a commercial kitchen space to to do your work, because usually as she mentioned, that the rents are extremely high. And I know a couple of people who have tried for months and months and months to find a commercial space that you could convert into a kitchen. So just to keep that in mind also, it's in the food industry, it's very different. Either you go and rent a kitchen, like a restaurant kitchen, which is like then a lot of like costs and rent, but it is not easy in the food industry. So you have to try. I know people who have managed it successfully, that they rented a place and then they have converted into a kitchen, but there aren't that many available. So I just wanted to add, because it's the same context.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's important for us to know about the challenges and the learnings too. So thank you for sharing, both of you. I have now questions for Pia, and this one is from the audience. So my first question is, can one become a sole trader while still in full-time employment with another employer?
Absolutely. There's no restrictions. You cannot apply for startup grant, but you absolutely can become a sole trader.
Okay. Okay. And my second question is, so I do make frequent trips to Finland, as my son lives there. Can I do business in Finland as an Indian passport holder to start with? And is there any extra work required to be done before being a businessman there?
If you are a sole trader, no, because you need to have a permanent address in Finland, or in the European Union to be exact. But if you set up a limited liability company with your son, then it can be done, because he would be the one having the permanent address in Finland, and you can just work for it. So it can be done, but little taken off-road.
Okay. Okay. Ramya, do you have any question?
Probably one last question again to Rashmi before we close up. You did mention about RECO groups. I don't know how many of our audience know actually what it is, and if you could elaborate a little bit more about the RECO groups and how you started to, also with the K market. So a little bit about that.
So Ramya, I think Rashmi had to drop off because she was driving back to Espoo.
Then I have no more questions. So
Can I do a small advertisement, which is something especially for you? We're actually having a entrepreneur day for women on the 6th of July in the Helsinki City Hall. The opening, it's the program and the sign-ins have not started yet, but they would start next Tuesday if we keep our timetable. So if you're interested, drop me a line at pia.partanen@hel.fi and I'll send you a link when it's up in the open.
So definitely, I think good that you brought this up here. So for the audience, they have heard it, so they will reach out to you. But when you have some like communication ready, you can let us know. We can post that on our page, so more and more people would know about it. And there's one more question. So is it okay if I go ahead with that? And I think anyone can answer this question. So the question is that in the testing phase, is it more practical to register the product or service as a trademark registration than registering as a private trader? So I think the question is more about, should we register the product as a trademark or should we register as a private trader? So what should come first?
It depends quite a lot on the product. So if the product is, if you're registering a brand, if I understood correctly, then if you register yourself as a sole trader, you register the name as well, and thus you don't have to register the brand again. If you can use the same name for your company, then it's covered, if I understood correctly.
I mean, my understanding is the question was more about the product or the company first, and your response is that if you register the company, in a way, product itself gets covered.
Yes. So if the question was about the product's name, the brand name, then if you can use the same brand name for your company, then
yeah,
just
okay,
one registration is enough.
Yeah, I think that answers the question, Pia, because I do see that it's more about the name. So that answers it. Thank you for that. Super.
I would like to just request the speakers to share all the useful links and the material to us so that we could further go and share it in our channels later. So, yeah.
But I think we've had a great session. There was a lot of information that was shared, a lot of experiences, a lot of perspectives, and I think the aspiring entrepreneurs in this community would have gained a lot listening to all of you, Pia, Pukraj, Sukhi, and Rashmi. So I want to warmly thank you once again for agreeing to be part of this webinar and agreeing to share your experiences, your stories with us. I would also like to thank the audiences for like listening in and also sharing their questions with us. What I would also add is, as I think someone had mentioned this, it's very important that we keep asking questions, reaching out for help to our friends, to our fellow entrepreneurs, because there are moments in this journey when one gets unsure. So I think it's important that we keep sharing and we keep asking questions and extending support. So now it's the time to close this session. So I wish you a great evening ahead. And yeah, and let's be in touch going forward too.
Thank you so much for being part of it. Thank you. It was really very useful, I'm sure, for everybody.
Thank you for having.
Thank you for having us.
Have
a lovely
Bye.
day. Bye.
Bye.